Welcome to our 100 Days of Stardew Valley Bingo Challenge. We are currently on the third challenge of this series, so if you haven't seen the videos covering the first 200 days, I'd recommend checking them out. Similar to those challenges, we are starting off with a fresh bingo card that I will be attempting to complete within the 100-day time limit. Since we are in year 2, the main objective and center bingo square of this challenge will be the daunting task of achieving perfection and reaching that game-culminating cutscene at the summit. I will be able to achieve bingo without reaching perfection in this 100 days, and a lot of the bingo spots on the card are stepping stones to this ultimate goal or standard achievements in the game. Some of the other spots include a goal to get hit by a train, have a completely full slime hutch, and never fail to gift a villager on their birthday. The boxes with the green text are essentially free to mark off until I fail them, and then they are gone for good. So if I hook a fish but can't reel it in, bye bye bingo spot. Will I be able to reach bingo and or perfection during this challenge, or will the next 100 days be a complete train wreck? Let's find out. We are starting off our new challenge on day 201, and in true Haley fashion, she called me hot stuff, but she also let me know our adoption papers were in progress, so it was only a matter of time before our second little hat rack would arrive, and I'd get the full house achievement, potentially marking off my first bingo spot of the challenge. I had a lot of work to do if I wanted to make enough money to reach perfection by the end of the challenge, so I set to work organizing chests and seeing how many kegs and preserve jars I could make, which wasn't many. So I made what I could and crafted a few more furnaces for the bars needed to craft kegs. Then I filled the preserve jars I'd made with blueberries. These would eventually be housed in a shed, but for now I have them on my secondary field. I checked in with Bingo and he wished me good luck on the new challenges, before heading off to Robin's for the shed I'd mentioned to house those preserve jars. Next, I stopped into Pierre's to pick up some wheat flour for the last few recipes, and saw that he still had a good chunk of key fruit in stock. I wonder how long those will keep. Continuing my shopping spree, I stopped in to see Gus and purchased some salads and coffee, and spent the rest of that evening planting winter seeds, taking a quick break to stop by the sewers to reset my mining skills, and completely forgetting to pick up an iridium sprinkler from Krobus since it was Friday. Maybe next week. That night, I selected the miner and prospector professions to aid in resource collection for jars and kegs. Most of day 202 I spent smelting ore and crafting kegs. I didn't want these new kegs to be off sync with the ones already in the shed, so I placed them inside to brew up some coffee in the meantime. Along with the coffee I'd bought yesterday from Gus, I made a few freshly brewed triple shot espressos to finish up the Keys Cuisine quest I'd started working on during the previous 100 days. Then began the tedious process of organizing chests and shipping crops needed for the polyculture and monoculture achievements. I was missing several of the polyculture crops, but was able to ship enough cranberries that I should be awarded the monoculture achievement. Overnight, I reset my foraging profession to forester and earned the monoculture achievement, checking off my first official bingo spot of this challenge. Sunday morning brought about a new recipe, so I baked up a poppy seed muffin and brewed myself a triple shot espresso. You know, that actually sounds like a pretty good breakfast. I wanted to head to the island today, but it was Caroline's birthday and I didn't want to lose completion of the birthday bingo square, so I brought her a morning cup of tea. Then headed to Willie's for a quick cruise over to the island. Once there, I harvested any waiting crops before traveling to the forge for my very first tool enchant. I was hoping for the shaving enchant on my axe for extra wood and got efficient. Guess I would have to try again once I get enough cinder shards. Even without the shaving enchant, I set to work chopping trees I'd planted in front of the walnut room for that much needed resource. Then headed inside to grab the key to the town. Getting inside houses outside of their normal hours would be important if I wanted to keep my birthday bingo spot alive throughout the entire challenge. I also picked up Pierre's missing stock list while I was there and had the coin to spend. The rest of the night was spent planting crops and chopping down even more trees around the island. I'd planned to stay the night on the island to check Key's quest board on Monday's reset, so I headed to bed, only to find I had yet again left Haley solo when our new child was delivered. Whoops. I named our new baby boy Ale, short for Alejandro, thanks to a really clever comment left by Hernan Torres. So now we have Ginger Ale, and I can mark off another bingo spot with the awarding of the Full House achievement. Even more crops were ready the next morning, so after picking them, I placed down another cheeky little batch of ancient fruit with the sprinklers I'd brought. Then it was time to check the available quests. I didn't want to cook again, and I was worried about my fishing bingo spot if I were to pick up the extended family quest, so I decided to pass on both. Next, I loaded up my pack and headed home, just in time for the Festival of Ice. I debated skipping the festival in favor of resource collection, but I just can't pass up a good fishing competition. Once back home, I collected wine and refilled kegs, even managing to get my jar collection started in the newly constructed preserve shed. On day 205, I went to check on our new baby Ale, and he gave me the cold shoulder. It was a good luck day, so I made an impulsive decision to head to Skull Cavern. I realized I hadn't checked the special orders board the night before, so I rode over to the board and picked up Robin's Resource Rush. Then I warped on over to the desert. After downing a triple shot and munching on some candy, I made my way into the cave. I found my first iridium node on floor 11, so I took that as a good sign. My goal today was to collect as much iridium as possible while attempting to tackle the level 100 Skull Cavern bingo spot. I had brought staircases with me, but was hoping to make it down without using them for that special dialogue. I found my first treasure room on floor 15, then another on floor 35, and a third on floor 56. I was making okay time and had yet to use any staircases, so I was feeling pretty good. Around 7 p.m., there was a shaft that dropped me 13 levels right into a treasure room on floor 74. And I reached my final treasure room on floor 94 around 11:30 that night. It was pretty late when I reached floor 99, so I started bombing the heck out of it to make sure I reached that final floor in time without using a staircase. And we made it! Even getting the honorable dialogue for my first time ever. Proud of my achievements, I warped myself home and threw some iridium ore on to be smelted before heading off for some much needed rest, only to hear some strange and spooky noises coming from outside in the dark of night. Wednesday morning, I found Ginger hanging out in the fish tank room. So cute. Then discovered the source of the strange noises I'd heard last night. Did you invite your friends over? I'm watching you. I figured I might as well ask Robin to start building the final shed while I had the resources, since I was already up in the area to bring Sebastian a frozen tear for his birthday. I wanted to take a quick trip to the desert to search for coconuts and buy some starfruit seeds, but Pam seemed to be taking the day off. So I spent the evening collecting stone in the normal mine. Day 207, I picked up a help wanted quest for Linus and used the key to the town to enter Pierre's shop early to hand over his stock list. Next, I brought Magnus the iridium bar he requested, considered a trip to the desert, but Pam was MIA for the second day in a row, so I dropped Linus by his frozen tear and headed back into the mines for stone. Not what I wanted to do with my day, but it wasn't a total waste as I was able to finish up the Dougie's monster slaying goal and collected a hard hat from Gil as reward. Friday morning, Haley decided to change the color of part of the floor and Ginger was watching the fishies again. My winter seeds were ready, so I harvested them and replanted the fields around the Judimo hut. Pam was missing from the bus stop again for the third day straight. If this wasn't a game, I would definitely go check on her at this point, but as it was, this was just super frustrating. Luckily, I still had a desert warp totem handy, so I grabbed it and made my way over to grab some coconuts needed for the obelisk, and a few more warp totems so that I would not be so dependent on Pam's chaotic whims. I bought starfruit, beets, and rhubarb seeds from Sandy. Then I spent a bit of time in the casino to buy hardwood fences for use on my farm, and collected more wood before making my way back to the valley to run about the mines until I had collected the final stone for Robin's quest. Then made some jars with my newly acquired resources. I also remembered to replace the floor Haley had changed and set up the front room with a little winter spirit, and I do mean a little. But I was so busy decorating that I forgot to buy the sprinkler from Krobus for the second Friday in a row. The spirits were so happy the next morning that I thought I should take advantage of their mood and jet off to the desert for the day. My main goal of the cavern today was collecting more iridium ore, and I finally used the zoom feature to help me with this endeavor. I ran into a dino room on floor 60, which was helpful for working on my monster slaying goals. But there was not too much more to report except that I found a cheeky crystallarium on floor 67, and then was immediately ambushed as I entered the next floor. Oh my gosh, I'm not scared, you're scared. I made it back that night with my shiny new crystallarium and nearly 100 iridium ore. Not great, but honestly not a bad haul for me. After the excitement of the mines yesterday, I wanted to take today a little easier. Plus, the spirits were in bad humor. So I brewed up a cup of coffee for Harvey's birthday and made my way into town. Apparently Pam was now off her bender and back to the bus. But too little too late, Pam. I will not be using your services again, hopefully. Once at Harvey's, I learned that he was really unsatisfied with his life, and I felt a little bad for him if I'm being honest. I was wholly out of wood, so I ran about the valley chopping any tree I saw, then commissioned a second barn to get started on my Piggy Paradise bingo spot, which will require me to have 2 deluxe barns full of pigs in their own designated area for completion of that goal. I spent the rest of the day replacing broken down wooden fences with hardwood fences from the casino, and clearing out the area that would eventually house all my truffle-seeking piggies. On day 211, after saying goodbye to my lovely ladies, I crafted some iridium sprinklers and brought these along with a mass of seeds over to Ginger Island. It was raining, so today was the perfect time to set up more crops as I had quite a bit of unused space. I even opted to forgo the night market as I wanted to plant as much as possible by the end of the day. I planted a large quantity of starfruit along with most of the seeds needed for the polyculture achievement. If my calculations are right, once these crops are grown, I would only be missing a few yams and I could purchase the seeds from Pierre thanks to the expanded stock list I'd picked up previously. I woke up on the island the next morning and tried to gussy up the fields a bit, then chopped a bit of much needed wood before checking the available key quests. Seriously? These 2 again? Thanks, but no thanks. Back in the valley that evening, I checked my obelisk materials chest and saw I now had all the coconuts and cactus fruit needed to craft the desert obelisk. This was the first obelisk on my build list, as soon as I had a spare 20 iridium bars and 1 million gold. No biggie. Later, I headed down to the night market, but only bought the cone hat and the available painting that I placed into the spare room I wanted to eventually turn into a playroom for the kiddos. On day 213, Haley asked if I had any plans for the day, and boy did I ever. Robin had finished construction on the second barn overnight, and I wanted to buy a good amount of pigs in time for them to be grown by spring, so I did something fairly controversial. I sold off all my other barn animals. I kept some ostrich eggs just in case, but minimizing the animals on my farm would simplify things for me quite a bit. That afternoon, I headed up to Robin's to buy a large amount of wood that I used to craft 400 tea saplings, and then proceeded to spend an obscene amount of money on more wood and some stone. I headed into town to sell the 400 tea saplings to Pierre in order to recoup some money from my earlier spending, before dropping by to see Clint about some coal. Wood, stone, coal, I think you know where this is going. So now my sheds are full of kegs and jars, until I upgrade them, that is. Oh, and I stopped by Robin's to move my coop over near the lake and upgrade my newly built barn. Remembered to give Magnus a purple mushroom for his birthday, and bought some yam seeds from the night market along with Lupini's painting that I placed in the bedroom for Ginger and Ale to enjoy. The next morning, the spirits were very happy, so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to head to the island volcano in search of the final dragon teeth needed for the obelisk. I found 1 in that entire day, which was rather upsetting. But a quest request the next morning put me in a better mood. Gus asked for a coconut to make a Coco No-No, and for some reason, that drink name gave me the giggles. At least I'm assuming it's a drink. I picked the garlic growing on the island and replanted the area with the yams, which would be the final crop needed to ship for the polyculture achievement. Once back on the farm, I picked all of the winter forageables before heading down to Marnie's. Today was the last day I could buy pigs for them to be adults come spring, so I welcomed in Shoshu, Chocha, Tirdo, Tumli, Sessa, Gucho, Bruce, Kappa, Gemli, Butcha, and Subby, to remind you to subscribe if you're enjoying the video. We are up to 13 of the 24 total pigs needed if you're counting along at home. It was Friday, so I grabbed an iridium sprinkler from Krobus, brought Gus the coconut he needed, then made over 400 winter seeds that I replanted around the Junimal hut. That night, I made the tough decision to sell all my chickens, so we are officially down to only ducks, rabbits, pigs, and dinosaurs on the farm. Speaking of dinos, a new baby named Wubba hatched that night. Evelyn's birthday was on day 216, and she sent me some cookies in the mail, so I wanted to be sure to gift her something good today. It was at this point that I decided not only would I need to gift everyone on their birthdays for the birthday bingo spot, but that it would need to be a loved gift, because why not? But first, I took to the mines for most of the day. I think I was farming for ores and coal, but honestly, can't remember. On floor 87, a helpful slime dropped a diamond, and this reminded me I'd better head over to gift Evelyn for her birthday before it got too late. She wasn't at home. But I managed to catch Evelyn heading out from the community center and gifted her the newly acquired slime diamond. I spent the rest of the night restocking preserve jars and placing fencing around my southern farm coops. Little Ale was finally alert on the morning of day 217, so I gave him a toss before checking the telly for the bruschetta recipe needed to complete the cooking achievement. I made the bruschetta straight away, and now we are only a week out from learning that final dish. After some basic farm chores, I took a trip to the desert since it was Sunday and I could trade in my jade. I also wanted to pick up a large quantity of starfruit seeds from Sandy to drop off on Ginger Island for replanting when the latest batch of crops were ready. Then it was back to the volcano in search of those dragon teeth. The next morning it was Monday and I was still on the island, so I headed up to see what quests Key had in store. I was still hesitant to fish, so I selected the Danger in the Deep quest before loading up my pack and heading back to the valley, where I kegged some of my ancient fruit, then checked the special orders board in town. But Demetrius had commandeered it with his stinky fishing quest. Dude, haven't you heard? I'm on a fishing hiatus. I spent the rest of the night making a little progress in the danger mines. The next morning it was jelly time again, so after taking care of that, I stopped in to give Leah a salad for her birthday, picked up a help wanted quest from Clint, then headed back to the danger mines for more level progression. Oh my gosh, I hate these squid mobs so much. But I made it to level 35 before calling it for the night. Wednesday morning, I wanted to continue filling my pig barns, so I headed to Marnie's and was relieved to see she was actually working today. I welcomed Groose, Pro, Granny, Juko, Senna, Partu, and Tupi into the drift. My barns were now at capacity with a total of 20 pigs, and if I wanted to hit my Piggy Paradise goal of 24 pigs, I would need some help from our fiery local carpenter. But before I visited Robin, I stopped in to see Clint as I had totally neglected upgrading my trash can this entire run. Then I was off to commission the final barn upgrade for my drove of pigs, and then back to the danger mines to see how far I could dive tonight. These green floors are so pretty, but those spiders, eek. I returned home early that night, so I worked on a playroom for the kiddos before heading to bed. Day 221 found us celebrating the Feast of the Winter Star for the second time this playthrough, and today my secret friend was Linus, so I gave him a yummy blueberry tart before accepting a gift from Willie. Anyone else having a slight feeling of deja vu? At least Ginger was able to come see the big tree with Haley and I this year. Once back home, I refilled all the preserve jars with blueberries before it got too late. What a lovely day. My final batch of winter seeds was ready the next morning, so after collecting those, I made my way down to the sewers for my customary Friday sprinkler from Krobus, caught Clint on his way into the community center for a birthday topaz, then spent the day diving in the danger mine, and reached level 90 before heading home for the night. I didn't have much going on the next day and really wanted to finish the Danger in the Deep quest, so I made my way first thing to the mines on day 223, and was able to reach the bottom at exactly 4:20 that evening. I spent the rest of that night working on the farm in the hopes of getting it ready for spring. It's the final day of year 2, and that means the final cooking recipe can now be obtained. Here's hoping I saved the ingredients needed to make shrimp cocktail. Survey says yes! And that lovely sound means we have officially earned the Gourmet Chef achievement. That morning, I spent time harvesting the greenhouse, planting starter grass for the new season tomorrow, and watching a new duckling Licardo hatch. I also stopped by Marnie's for the 4 final pigs needed to fill up both deluxe barns. Welcome to the farm, little Snotchy, Chess, Furtu, and Gumbus. It was Sunday, so I took my traditional trip over to the island to be there to check the Walnut Room quest the next morning. And while there, I made sure to harvest and replant crops as needed, and shimmy searched the river at the dig site for materials. The next morning was the start of year 3 and that infamous visit from Grandpa. I wasn't certain if he'd find me over on the island, But sure enough, he arrived right on cue. Though I will have to wait until I head back to the valley to find out how many candles are lit. What do you think? Did we make Grandpa proud? Before I made my way to the walnut room, I had a bit of harvesting to do since, if I counted correctly, my final crops for the polyculture shipping achievement were ready. Once in the walnut room, I decided to pick up Key's kindness quest since I was still boycotting fishing quests, but really needed those key gems for some final recipes. And now, for the moment of truth as we head back to the farm. We got all 4 candles from Grandpa! That morning, I set my pigs free for the first time in their new private piggy paradise. Now give me those truffles. Next, I gifted Sandy the first loved gift for Key's quest while in the desert to pick up more rhubarb seeds to plant for spring. I spent the rest of the day planting my rhubarb around the Junimo hut and refilling my kegs and preserve jars for a lovely payday. I woke up the next morning to find I had counted correctly and was now able to mark off the polyculture achievement on my bingo card. I had a fruit salad I knew Haley would love, and I was curious if gifting your spouse counted for the Key's kindness quest, since you can give them more than the standard 2 gifts a week. My first batch of truffles was ready to collect, and I finally remembered to check Grandpa's shrine for my statue of perfection. This little cutie will give me iridium ore daily. Then I headed to the Wizard's Tower to build a second Junimo hut and kick off my loved gifting spree for Key. What a long day. But it's not over yet, as I spent the evening working on field setup around the latest Junimo hut. I started off day 227 by gifting a coconut to my lovely wife, then planted strawberries in the field I'll be calling Junimo 1. And yes, I know it's the second hut built, but it's on the left and has the more optimal sprinkler setup. Next, I filled up my pack and headed out for day 2 of gifting. Once back at home, I made sure to clean up the bottom right corner of the farm where I intended to place a slime hutch in the near future. Day 228 was Kent's birthday, so I grabbed some roasted hazelnuts to do double duty as both a birthday present and one of the remaining loved gifts for Key's kindness quest. Only 1 gift left to go, so I gave Robin a peach to finish up the Key quest. Then made my request to have a slime hutch built near my southern coops. Next, I headed to the island to harvest a few crops and pick up the final walnut room recipe with my newly acquired key gems. The next day, I went to the desert to purchase more starfruit seeds and chop down a few of the trees I'd planted there before making my customary Friday trip to see Krobus, worked on farm pathing, and made a few dozen tea saplings for a mini cast infusion. On Saturday, I finally remembered to take down the tree since it was no longer winter. And because it was a relatively good luck day, I wanted to take a trip to Skull Cavern. Marlin caught me on my way out the door though, and gave me a green slime egg for my new hutch, which I will deposit in the incubator later, because it was desert time. And while there, I picked up the recipe for the desert warp totem, then started the dive in search of iridium. I managed to reach floor 86 and collected over 80 iridium ore before heading home, but surprisingly had no treasure rooms the entire day. Sunday was another good luck day, so my goal was to head back to the caverns. But first, I needed to restock the preserve jars and bring Lewis a pepper for his birthday. So it was 11 o'clock before I made my way inside the caves. And for my first treasure room of the day, a blue cowboy hat. Did I say first? I meant only. My only treasure room for the day. But we did collect another 16 bars worth of iridium ore. Another Happy Spirits Day means another trip to the desert, and at least the treasure room seemed a bit more plentiful. Triple the rooms from yesterday, in fact. I even found a Pepper Rex floor to help work on my monster slaying goals. Day 233 was another good humor day, but 3 days in a row in Skull Cavern is apparently my limit, as I opted to clear out the piggy truffle traffic jam over by the gate. Good morning, Bruce. Then worked on setting up the slime hutch a bit. That afternoon, I checked in on Pierre's to see if he had any of the key fruit left, but he was down to 2 pieces, so picking up that quest again was looking a little bleak. I did pick up the Gifts for George quest before heading to the island to fill in the remaining space with more starfruit crops. The next morning, I headed out to find Vincent for his birthday and stumbled upon him and Jas with a dancing onion. Then found him for real starting class with Miss Penny in the library to gift him a birthday grape. I had been crafting kegs as materials became available, so I asked Robin to upgrade Wine Shed 1, which cost a lot of wood, so I headed back over to the desert to refill my reserves. And while there, I picked up enough rhubarb seeds to replant Ginema Field 2. That night, I wanted to make things easier on myself, so I changed my foraging profession back to botanist so that all of my future truffles would be iridium quality. So now I can toss my truffles directly into the shipping bin without feeling like I'm missing out on a good deal of profit. Oh, good morning, Bruce. I had a crafting recipe that required marble, so I took some geodes over to Clint for processing. And lo and behold, he found one in a frozen geode. While looking for leeks in the forest later that afternoon, I came across a trash panda asking for a wild horseradish, which I happen to have on me. Next, he wanted a smallmouth bass, which I was able to deliver after rummaging through some chests. Fried calamari was the next request, so I whipped one up before grabbing him the final requested item of algae soup. That trash panda was such a cutie, but he ended up monopolizing my entire afternoon. Then I monopolized my evening working on crafting recipes. Friday morning, I decided to change up my look by spilling some Joja Cola onto the sewing machine. Not too much else to report on this day, except that I moved some preserve jars closer to the fish ponds for ease of access. On Saturday morning, I started working on the southern field, as I would be using this area to plant starfruit come summer. Then I headed into town for the Egg Festival to win the egg hunt for the 3rd year in a row. Though, if I'm being honest, my main goal was seeing Ginger running about the festival. She's hiding. Back at home, I moved the chest containing my processing produce closer to the sheds, again for ease of access. On day 238, the rhubarbs were ready to harvest, but since it was raining, the Junimos were taking the day off and I did the harvest myself. Once my morning farm chores were completed, I brought Haley her customary birthday gift, then stopped over to have Clint upgrade my hoe, added more kegs to my newly upgraded shed, and dropped by the island farm to replant any harvestable starfruit. Waking up on the island Monday morning meant a check of the Walnut Room quest, but I decided to pass on both. On the way out of Key's room, I went to fight the tiger slimes on the hill and was rewarded with 2 tiger slime eggs. Back home that night, I switched out Ginger's fedora for a new hair clip since it was technically her birthday, and that was the only present I could give. Before heading to bed that night, I planted a fairy rose in the empty garden pot, as I would need the flower to craft one of the recipes needed for perfection. Let's hope I remember to water it. On day 240, I set aside the iridium bars needed for all 4 obelisks, so now all we're waiting on is funding. Just a cool 3 million needed, no biggie. The slime incubator was empty, so I added one of my new tiger slime eggs, as these are the most profitable of slimes to breed. Then headed to pick up my hoe from Clint and had him start working on my final watering can upgrade. A quick check of the monster eradication goals showed I was getting pretty close to becoming a slime slayer, and I really wanted that ring for slime hutch safety, so I headed into the mines in search of our wobbly friends. Though I gave up on that goal fairly early in exchange for searching the forest for leeks for George and the locationally convenient salmonberry. The next morning, I found Ginger pretending to be one of her dolls. Isn't she so cute? I didn't do much worth mentioning today except plant a rare seed in the greenhouse and rode around the valley on the look out for more leeks. Day 242, my watering can was ready, so I picked it up and requested my trash can be upgraded next. Then asked Robin to upgrade jar shed number 1, before making my way to the bus stop to gift Pam a parsnip for her birthday on my way to the desert for some starfruit seeds and an afternoon cave dive. The spirits were in good humor the next day, and I had over 1 million gold burning a hole in my pocket, so I decided today would be the day I'd do it. Today, I would build my very first obelisk, the desert obelisk. Sorry Pam, but you burned me one too many times. Now for my maiden voyage, and into the cavern for another afternoon dive. That night, I ran into a dino floor, but didn't stick around the desert too long as I had truffles ready for collection. I'd been unlucky trying to find the leeks needed for George in the wild, so the next morning I planted a batch of spring seeds that would be ready right before the end of the season. It was Shane's birthday, so I made sure to bring him a hot pepper, then spent most of the evening doing a little deforestation by the river to craft the 39 kegs needed to fill out wine shed number 1. The next morning, I refilled my wine shed with starfruit and ancient fruit, then spent some time getting my southern fields ready for summer for the rest of the day. But I did realize it was Sunday later that night, and I made it to the desert to trade in my extra jade for staircases. Monday morning was a good luck day, so I headed to Skull Cavern, straight into an infested floor 1. I didn't even know that was possible. That afternoon, I fell into my first treasure room on floor 41, but headed home fairly early that evening to say goodnight to my truffle-loving piggies and ship off some freshly crafted tea saplings. The next morning was raining, so I harvested the strawberries in my Junimo field and wished the piggies good morning before jarring the freshly picked strawberries, then headed to the Wizard's Tower for my main objective of the day, building the island obelisk, which I used to make my way to the island for additional harvesting. I made sure to lay down deluxe speed grow as I was looking to ramp up my starfruit production, and also carefully removed some strawberries to replace with starfruit as I had over 10 million gold to make and only a few weeks left to do it. Before I headed home for the night, I wanted to enchant my weapon at the forge. I was hoping for a Crusader to aid in monster slaying goals, as this would allow me to down mummies without the use of bombs. And survey says, nope, artful. Okay, let's try this again. And we got Crusader on the second attempt. I even had enough cinder shards left over to toss some random enchants on my sword using a diamond. On the day of the flower dance, I spent the morning harvesting the greenhouse, then headed down to the fairgrounds with Haley and Ginger. And now the dance has started. See me standing in the corner? Is this because I wanted to keep Ginger company during the dance, or did I forget to ask for a dance partner? I guess we'll never know. Though I am low-key sad that Ginger is nowhere to be seen during the dance itself. That night, the witch was also in a festive mood, as she threw her own dance party in my lizard coop. Day 249 was the final Thursday before summer, so I stopped in to see Sandy and stock up on deluxe speed grow. I may have mentioned this during my 200-day challenge, but Sandy sells deluxe speed grow for 80 gold, but only on Thursday. If you're in a pinch, you can buy it from Pierre any other day, but he charges nearly double what Sandy does. Come on now, Pierre. Since I was already in the desert, I headed into the cavern and was able to work on my Pepper Rex monster slaying goal, and tested out my new weapon enchant on some mummies. I headed home in time to refill preserve jars, then had a visitor for the second night in a row, this time in the form of an owl friend. Perfect timing to hoot in the halfway point of the challenge. The next morning, I went to check in on my dino coop, and for a brief moment wondered if the Wizard's X had gifted me a dark dino, but the witch had only dropped off a void egg. The new dino was from the incubator. We also had a duck named Zella hatch in the duck and bunny coop. It was Pierre's birthday, so I headed on down to his shop, only to find he had taken the day off. No shade from me for choosing a beach day birthday with the boys. While on the island, I picked up a few more lucky tiger slime eggs, before heading home to clean up the truffle bounty my pigs had been working on the past couple days. I found Bingo mimicking the owl statue in the southern field, then spent the evening setting up the final pathing to the south. Saturday was Emily's birthday, so I brought her a topaz first thing that morning, before heading to see Clint about a trash can. Fun fact, Clint often stands behind his desk for hours before he opens, so the key to the town allows you to use his services before 9 a.m. My spring forage had grown, so I would be able to finish up the quest for Evelyn today, so I plopped the leeks into the oven, hoping George didn't notice from mere feet away. Then I spent the afternoon harvesting starfruit on the island that I would use to refill the kegs in my wine sheds. I'd saved a few of the wine to place in casks in the basement the next morning, and found a little thank you from Evelyn for the leeks in the form of a coffee maker. Very nice. That afternoon, I refilled my preserve jars with rhubarb before heading to the desert to spend a small fortune on the first round of starfruit for the start of the summer season tomorrow. Bright and early on the first day of summer, I downed a crab cake and some espresso, then dashed out to start my busy day hoeing and watering the field. It was evening by the time I started planting all my starfruit along with a healthy dose of deluxe speed grow. Fun fact, while you could typically get 2 harvests of starfruit by planting in the valley during summer, adding deluxe speed grow allows for 3 harvests if planted on the first. I managed to finish planting all 4 fields and made a mad dash for the door, only to pass out right on the doorstep. officially losing access to the Don't Pass Out bingo spot for the remainder of the challenge. Haley made me an omelet the next morning to help recoup my strength. And apparently Marlin was the one who found me last night, though not sure how I ended up in the mud. A quick survey of my fields showed I missed planting in 2 spots, but 2 out of 664 plots isn't too bad, I suppose. That morning, I added another tiger slime egg to the incubator, collected oak resin from my island farm, and picked up the Skull Cavern Invasion quest as I was feeling particularly overzealous on that day. Checking the perfection tracker, I was up to 77% completion, but I still had a few goals that had nothing to do with perfection, like upgrading tools to Iridium. So I placed my final trash can order with Clint just before closing time. On day 255, a batch of jelly was ready, and it was then I realized I couldn't buy coal for more jars as Clint was working on my trash can. So I refilled my available jars with starfruit and any other produce I had in my jarring chest. The next morning, I dropped off some pink cake for Jas's birthday, before stopping to see Sandy about some starfruit seeds that I used to replant the island field. Next, I dipped my toes into the spooky Skull Cavern, and while there, managed to finish the Slime Slayer goal, which seemed like plenty of progress for the day. Speaking of monster slaying progress, look at all those completed goals. Still ignoring the second page, please. With my newly acquired slime charmer ring, I headed into the slime hutch the next morning, but decided not to tangle with my slimes on this occasion, opting to place another tiger slime egg into the incubator. Then spent the afternoon in the mines farming for coal and ores, until I remembered my trash can upgrade was completed, so I raced over to Clint, only to get there at exactly 4 p.m. and used my town key to enter. Gotta love those after hours to pick up my trash can, which was the final Iridium tool upgrade. I also bought copious amounts of coal while at Clint's, before heading to Robin's for more wood and stone. Wood, stone, coal? I think you know where this is going, again. I also upgraded my final shed, so that I could eventually have a total of 274 kegs and jars inside the respective sheds. That night, I started filling up Preserve Shed 1 with my newly crafted jars, though it was getting late, so I would have to finish up in the morning. I was back in the shed first thing the next morning to place and fill all the jars, then turned my attention to Wine Shed 2 to fill in a few more gaps in the layout. It took me most of the day to situate my sheds, but they were now filled and under control, for the time being. Ale was tuttling about for the first time on day 259. And Haley reminded me I had a task that needed completed today, as my potted fairy rose had finished growing. So I plucked it, and headed outside to grab the diamond needed to craft my final recipe. And with that, the Craftmaster achievement is mine, and with it I am able to mark off the final bingo spot needed for bingo! We did it! Bingo was achieved on the 7th of summer. See, I told you 7 was my favorite number. But now we are at a bit of a crossroads. During my 200 days challenge, I only had about 20 days left when I reached bingo, so I thought it made sense to finish out the 100 days. But for the 300 days, we have over 40 days left, almost half the total challenge remaining. So I started thinking, what was the most important thing to me in this playthrough? And in the end, it all came back to my most vital central bingo spot. I want to reach perfection. So the rest of this video will be me attempting to do just that, no matter how many in-game days it takes. For a better idea of how I'll make money over the next few weeks, let's turn now to the Wheel of Profit. Farming is my main source of income while attempting to raise funds to purchase the golden clock. Over the summer, I will have my farm bursting to the brim with 3 batches of starfruit, thanks to the boost from Deluxe Speed Grow. Those nearly 2,000 starfruit will be crammed ceremoniously into a keg for maximum profit. More on that later. For fall, I will be planting the amazing artichoke on the majority of my valley farm. And my reasons for this are bountiful. First off, artichoke seeds are pretty cheap, but they yield high profits when pickled, meaning I can fill up my fields without breaking the bank, then rake in the dough in a few weeks' time. Second, artichoke are a single yield crop, so I can use speed grow to either grant a few extra harvests or afford myself an extra day for planting, since I don't want to run into that time crunch I felt in the previous season. And lastly, my kegs would presumably be filled with starfruit, so I want a fall crop that keeps my jars churning. And for that, the artichoke is king of the profit crop, as they will produce more harvest than pumpkins per plot. On my island farm, I'll leave my lovely ancient fruit alone, but will be replacing all my strawberries with, you guessed it, more speed grow starfruit. For the most part, I will be turning my ancient fruit and starfruit into wine and jarring any other available produce into jelly or pickles. I'll also be utilizing the casks in my cellar to bump up the profit of some of my wine, though I will only be letting them hit gold star quality due to time constraints. While selling truffles technically falls under the other category, I am considering them forageables for the sake of this breakdown. I have 24 precocious piggies, and due to the botanist profession, all of their truffle finds will be iridium quality. Instead of spending time turning these truffles into oil, I will be selling them outright for $12.50 a pop. Meaning on any day it's not raining, I will be raking in around 30,000 gold in passive income, which can really add up. I was so worried about losing my fail at fishing bingo spot that I have been avoiding fishing at all costs. But now that I achieved bingo, I can throw caution to the wind and fish to my heart's content. And while I will not be spending my days fishing, I will be picking up any legendary fishing quest offered up by Mr. Key, as these fish fetch a pretty penny and you can catch more than one while the quest is active. I don't think I'm good enough at skull cavern diving to muster up a massive amount of iridium ore for bar profits, but there is an ore type that is actually worth 3 times that of iridium, and that is radioactive ore. This can be easily collected by setting the mines to danger mode and floor farming on a good luck day. Changing your profession to blacksmith will then net 4,500 gold per radioactive bar. Imagine dragging that. Last but not least, we turn to the other category that technically includes the before mentioned truffle, but also contains the lucrative tea sapling. I'd spent most of my time in the valley stocking up a supply of wild seasonal seeds and planting a little area with fiber. So I was set to rake in 500 gold per sapling after doing a bit of deforestation. During the second week of summer, I continued my birthday bingo spot success by gifting Gus an orange on Monday, Maru a strawberry on Wednesday, and Alex a salmon dinner on Saturday. While waiting around near Maru's house on her birthday, I was fortunate enough to hear the blessed whistle of the train, and managed to get myself hit by that most lucky of locomotive, checking off yet another bingo spot. For the rest of the week, I completed the Void Spirits Monster Slayer goal, worked on jars for my preserve shed, and spent some quality time with the kiddos. There was a lot going on the third week of summer, so let's get right into it. On Monday night, I hit the 10 million achievement and managed to mark that off my list. Then Tuesday, I finished off the Monster Slayer quest for the serpents, the mummies, thanks to my sword's wonderful Crusader enchantment, and the Pepper Rex, all in fairly quick succession. By the end of the week, I'd managed to slay my final Magma Sprite as well, fully completing all monster eradication goals. The birthday bingo spot continued on Wednesday when I brought Sam a cactus fruit, then Friday when I brought a strawberry to Demetrius. I fully filled out both my wine and preserve sheds on Thursday that week. And speaking of full, at some point during the week my hutch had become full, so we'll just mark that bingo spot off as well. The final week of summer saw me continuing my birthday gift bestowal to the dwarf on Monday, Willie on Wednesday, and Leo on Friday. Aside from that, the main day worth mentioning was Tuesday, and boy was it a doozy, as I decided it was the day I'd finish my obelisk collection and mark off that bingo spot. Followed quickly by losing my fail fishing bingo spot as I attempted to reel in the legendary glacier fish too. Easy come, easy go, I suppose. In the first week of fall, Tuesday was yet again the busiest day of the week, as I was a busy little beaver and finally finished the Big Help achievement. I handed out a birthday gift to Penny that same day, then another to Elliot on Friday. And while it wasn't technically his birthday, I decided to pop a hat on Ale so that he wasn't left out. Week 2 of fall saw a slow start, but it really picked up speed as towards the end of the week, I managed to rake in enough funds to purchase the golden claw. But before I do that, I have a few missing statues that need collecting, enabling me to mark off that particular bingo spot on Wednesday. What do you think of my home decor fashion sense? Please don't answer that. I honestly can't believe that I made enough money in such a short time and can officially visit the wizard to purchase that trophy of timepieces. Checking the perfection tracker for possibly the final time revealed that we did it! We are at 100% perfection! Yet, can it truly be called perfection until you make that grand trek out to the summit? It has been a long and winding road, but the only thing loftier than some of the goals we set for ourselves is the view from that most majestic of mountains. And as I stood there for the first time with Haley by my side, I can honestly say I was happy. And I want to thank all of you for coming along on this journey with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.